Thank you. Yeah, so my name is Gosse Veninga. That's a bit a difficult name. So in Dutch it's Gosse, in English it's Hosse, and in Spanish it's Jose. So to make life a bit easier for you. Yes, I'm responsible for product excellence within business unit layers. So responsible for product excellence, and that involves product development, including R&D projects, innovation, and data strategy. In this presentation, I will not focus on innovation, but currently there is a main focus on innovosexing. As you might be aware, in Germany, it's not allowed anymore to kill one-day-old males, since they are not producing eggs. They are kind of useless, and in fact, we are used to killing them at day one, once when they're hatched. So that's not allowed in Germany anymore, and as of January next year, neither in France. And for that reason, innovosexing techniques are developed in order to take out embryo eggs at an earlier stage, currently either day 9 or day 14. And in the afternoon, you will hear about another solution. Yeah, then shortly introduction, but I will not go through the details. In fact, I have been always involved in animal genetics in different species. So currently it's layers. Before it was dairy cattle and beef cattle. Before that, 11 years in the broiler breeding. Salmon and trout was included, and even pigs. What I really like is the interaction between market and research, and try to get all the knowledge as good as implemented as possible in breeding programs in order to realize progress. So some other links during this meeting. So in the afternoon, you will also have an update from Caitlin Cooper. She will introduce herself. On Wednesday, my colleague Marco de Almeida will also pop up in the meeting. He is area director in South America and based in Brazil, in São Paulo state. We have close connection with Mark Tizard, where we have a research project together with CSIRO. Somebody else will give the update. And of course, Anna Granades, who had an update earlier this morning, Director EFAP. In order to make sure that we can continue with animal breeding in Europe, I think EFAP plays a crucial role. And there are quite some challenges. Like one of the speakers mentioned, talking about the use of hormones and also getting oocytes at a very early stage of calves, that would become really difficult in Europe. But anyway, we all have our challenges. And after this workshop, I also hope to have a lot of connections with you. So our vision, Hendrix Genetics, is setting the standard for sustainable animal breeding, and that is also the title of my presentation. I will focus on, in the first part, on some highlights of a breeding program, have focus on layer breeding. Well, since the audience is quite, since there is a huge variety, I really focus on the headlines. And the second part is how we are focusing, or how our position is regarding gene editing. So I really come back to that as well in the second part. So then about Hendrix Genetics, well, I will not necessarily explain the organization structure, but more to show which species we're dealing with. So on the left side, we're dealing with turkeys and layers. And in fact, both species, it's a market where there are two main genetics companies involved, and we are one of them. Traditional poultry, swine, and aquaculture, it's a bit more diverse. The previous speaker was talking about smallholder farms. With traditional poultry, we have a specific project in Africa, SAPSA project, where the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation is subsidizing development with smallholders with traditional poultry. So I think that is really a nice example of trying to develop things together. What is animal breeding? Well, I sometimes get a comment of friends, so you probably are genetically modifying animals. And sometimes I tend to say yes to have an easy conversation and stop. Reality at this stage is that we don't do it at all, but we would have interest to do it. And then the conversation is substantially longer. And those friends who have interest, it's a very interesting conversation because they don't have a clue when they're not a little bit involved in agriculture. So, well, I think it's funny. I will not continue with that, but also keep that in mind with gene editing. With these type of people, you also need to consider in the whole conversation and evaluation. So a short overview about the egg production supply chain, and this is something you really can copy paste for turkeys, for pigs, for broilers. It's exactly the same setup. There are some slight differences, but with layers, it's about eggs. Most species, it's about meat. So in the top, we have the pure lines. Different populations. In this case, to produce one product, we have 4 different populations: population A, population B, population C, and D. Very easy. In a population, there are a lot of animals. What we simply do is we do a lot of individual measurements using a lot of difficult statistical methods explained by Daniel Gianola at start of today, so I don't have to do it anymore. And then at the end, select the best to produce the next generation. So that is, in fact, very simple. What we also can see over here is that, I think this is a pointer, so that one D-line female is responsible for 1 million final product birds. And final product birds are, in fact, the birds who are producing the eggs, which are in the supermarket and processing industry. So that's about one female D line. If you then think about one male in the A line, we can use one male on 10 females. So if you do that on every level, you have a factor 10 times 10 times 10. That's a factor 1,000. So in fact, one male over here is responsible for 1 billion final product females in order to produce many, many eggs. So that is how animal breeding works. In the top of the pyramid, there is really the genetic selection, and then you have a number of multiplication steps in order to produce many, many final products at the end, and therefore many eggs. So that's, let's say, if you realize genetic progress in the top, the impact is huge. Well, then about the evolution of breeding goals, also shown by Anna earlier today. Breeding companies in general focused on selling parent stock, so the parents of the final product in the past. And because of that, the focus in the beginning was a lot on this parent stock efficiency and partly on product efficiency. After that, during the 80s, product quality also got involved more and more. So how does the egg look like? What is the color of a brown egg? How good is it? But also the egg shell quality and some other traits. And then over time, health and welfare became more important. We wanted to keep the birds longer. So for that reason, survival rates became more important, but also the feathering of the bird. Because if the feathering of the bird is good, it has a lot of positive impact on many traits. And then last point in sustainability was added. We want to keep our birds longer and longer because that also helps for your efficiency a lot. So one thing what we also do in the animal breeding of layers is to do testing in group housing. So those are cages, but there are a number of birds in cages. In the breeding program, so at pure line level, the top level itself, we have the birds so far in individual cages, but that is not the reality worldwide in the industry. So worldwide, I would say about 85% of the birds are kept in group cages. And those groups can be 5 birds, can be 20 birds. And about 15% are kept in non-cage systems, aviary systems, barn systems, in Europe, in Africa, but also more and more in North America. And in order to do the selection well for the demand of our customers, it is really important to include these group cage testing to make sure that we have social females and that they don't kill each other every day, or not every day, but that they don't kill each other a lot. And also keep the feathers in good shape. Poorer feathering means higher feed intake, and that's not good for sustainability. So adding genomic information, that has been also, Gianola mentioned that in the beginning of 2000, many studies were done around this. So in the meantime, this has been widely implemented in animal breeding. So what we in fact do is for individual animals, birds, we're using 60,000 data points of the DNA and use it in a statistical way in order to make the genetic breeding value estimation better and be able to select the best birds, and therefore we make more progress. Before this DNA information, of course, also other techniques were implemented. BLUP was mentioned, B-L-U-P, but also the animal model in the 90s was implemented in order to make to use all the information of family members to estimate genetic values. So faster genetic progress at the end is the target. So what is our breeding goal? Well, to keep it simple, breeding the highest amount of first quality eggs per hen housed. That's the easy one. Well, that includes persistency of egg production, so keeping egg production very long at every day an egg. Livability, so avoid any mortality. Optimal curve, so a flat egg weight curve helps a lot to improve persistency. And also eggshell quality is very important, because over time, when the female is getting older, in general, the eggshell quality is getting worse. But by selecting for it, you can improve it a lot. So I can make the picture a bit more complicated. In fact, there are many more traits involved in the selection. I can give you a few examples. Eggshell color, as mentioned earlier. We still want to have the eggshell color of brown eggs more brown and the white eggs more white. You say a white egg is a white egg. It's not completely true. The other one is feed intake. Dependent on the circumstances, we would like to have a lower feed intake or a higher feed intake. So if you have, for example, birds in cages with ideal circumstances, you prefer to have a relative low feed intake. But if you have an aviary system where the bird has to find the feed herself and does need to do some more walking and there's some more temperature fluctuation, then the feed intake needs to be sufficiently good in order to survive and to keep producing. Well, in the feather cover, I have mentioned before. So over here, one picture. This is the most detailed one I will show today. Over here, what we see is an egg production curve. So over here is the percentage of egg production. And over here is the age of the flocks in weeks. So it starts at about 20 weeks and it continues until 100 weeks. And we see here graphs of different families. And what we see over here is one family which is producing about 90% egg production at 100 weeks of age. So that is really impressive. And that has been realized by selections. And that's also where we as a company have focused on a lot in order to improve the sustainability. So what is the final result? In the 70s, a white female was producing about 240 eggs per hen. And in today, this is around 475. So it's almost doubling the amount. There is one additional thing to mention over here. The period is not the same. So this one is in 100 weeks, and this one, and that is lacking, but that's in 70 weeks. So that is not, it's not a fair comparison. On the other hand, we have improved the persistency of the egg production so much, and because of that, we can keep the females until 100 weeks of age. So the impact is huge, and you can imagine that for sustainability, yeah, this is a fantastic result. So that was the first part. Second part is on gene editing. What is our position and how would we like to continue? And well, this is also one of the reasons why I really positively accepted the invitation for this meeting, because I think it's also really important to have the interaction and see how we can get things implemented. So use of gene editing in animal breeding. Well, there can be several reasons. That can be used for a better understanding of the function of a variant, but I think in general, more important for animal breeding, it's about the introduction of a new variant in the population. So what could be focus traits or reasons to do animal gene editing? One reason can be animal welfare. Another one, disease resistance, genetic security, and in some cases, human health. And the focus will not be, from our perspective, for production traits. And I also realize that this is a kind of European point of view, but I think this is also a safe start. So over time, when, let's say, different continents have accepted gene editing, yeah, we absolutely would consider production traits. Yeah, so position statement of Hendrix Genetics, we are currently not using gene editing in products. It is a promising technology. And when we want to work on an application of gene editing in the future, we really need to do it very careful. And we think that animal welfare is the most promising domain to focus on when we want to work on this. So we published this statement in 2018, internally, but also externally. And currently we are involved in 3 research projects where gene editing is applied. We have the castration-free swine project with Axeligen, disease resistance in salmonids, and the development of sex-detectable layer line. That is the topic where Caitlin will focus on in the afternoon. And when we started that project, we also said, we can do a research project on this topic and getting it implemented, but at least as important is to see how we can organize permissions to get it implemented. And for that reason, contact with regulators is very important to see what is feasible and what not, and what we need to do. So input of all type of stakeholders is really crucial to make things happen and explore what is needed. If we look to the world, then it is also clear that we will not start in Europe, but maybe over time, Europe also is willing to set some steps. So that at the end depends on the demand. So updates on the project, disease resistance in salmonids, that is really focused on the disease IPN. So there is genetic variation in Atlantic salmon, and the idea is also to, by gene editing, try to organize it in the trout. And the castration-free swine project is, in fact, to avoid the boar taint. But the challenge from the beginning already was that it might have impact on fertility. And that is, in fact, also the conclusion, that it is not possible to solve at this stage. And for that reason, that project has been stopped or finalized. So steps in the use of gene editing for introduction. Finding the target is one step. Testing the impact of the edit. Does it have the predicted effects as we projected before? And what are the consequences on other traits? And then the next step is introducing the variant in breeding populations. So technology is available. Should we use it? And yeah, this is really about responsible innovation. We want to do this in an open way. And for that reason, we also want to communicate about this to see, yeah, how can we follow the complete evaluation process well. So is it legal? Is it allowed? Is it ethical? Can we justify it towards the stakeholders? And will the society accept it at the end? And the society, yeah, we can split the world in different parts. So not everyone has to agree on this. If I look to Europe, then I do expect that process will take a long time, whereas in other continents that could go just a bit faster. Yeah, then some elements of the framework. What is the benefit of the application is an important one. Try to quantify that. What is the impact on the animal? Try to prove that with some generations and really monitor closely what have we done really and are there no side effects? And is there an alternative approach to realize the same benefit? So if that would be the case, then yeah, we don't necessarily have to gene editing birds in this case. So responsible research and innovation. It's about anticipation. So we need to be proactive, need to communicate with the different stakeholders, also reflect well, try to challenge ourselves and not having or developing too much a tunnel vision. Try to involve all the stakeholders which are there. And at the end, also make use of the things we learned during the entire process. And then for this, our objective of this workshop is really focused on, get to know the experts, the active players in the field, learn from present cases, explore options to implement, and communicate in an open way. And with that, I would like to thank you for your attention. So with setting the standard for sustainable animal breeding, we really want to do it via in responsible innovation. And we really think that is key to communicate in an open way. Thank you.